Hi everyone, my name is Kazim Adegboyega. I'm an IT professional, a cloud master, and a Microsoft certified trainer. And I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar on managing Office 365 users and groups. What are we going to be covering in today's webinar? At the end of today's presentation, I'm going to be leaving you with an understanding of what Office 365 is. We will talk about how to manage user accounts and licenses. I'll be walking you through managing password and authentication. We'll look at managing security groups in Office 365, and we'll wrap things up with managing Office 365 users and groups using Azure PowerShell. So without any further ado, let us get to work. Now, before we get into the meat of the course proper, for the benefit of some of us who don't have an understanding of what Office 365 is, so I'll just like to start with that. So what is Office 365? Office 365 is a Microsoft cloud-based productivity suite that delivers software as a service to users all around the world, right? So when I say software as a service is one of the cloud models out there, right? There is another model known as PaaS, platform as a service. There's another model known as infrastructure as a service, where you're having your infrastructure in the cloud. In the case of a platform as a service, as opposed to having your solutions, your developer solutions on premises, you simply have them in the cloud, so which aids the developmental processes, for your developers. Likewise, if you need softwares to be consumed by your users, you need to first of all have those softwares installed on your servers in your offices, right, in your server room. Now, in the case of PaaS, you don't need to have those softwares installed on-prem. A cloud provider such as Microsoft has gone through the trouble of doing the installation for you. They've set up data centers with all of these different applications that you can consume, right? So you only need to pay a certain fee for you to continue to use this application. Now, that model of cloud computing is known as software as a service, and O365 is a very good example of a software as a service platform, or a software as a service solution, right? Now, what are the services or components that makes up O365? There are a number of components that makes up O365, a number of services that runs on O365, but the major components include Exchange Online. So Exchange Online is an email application. You use that to send and receive emails. So you also have SharePoint Online, which is now known as Microsoft Teams, right? SharePoint allows you to do a number of things. It depends on what you need SharePoint to do for you. You can use SharePoint to build websites. You can use SharePoint to do document management. You can use SharePoint to collaborate, right? If, for instance, you need your users to many of your users to work on a particular document at the same time, so you can use SharePoint to do all those kind of things, and SharePoint of course can do way more. So SharePoint Online is one of those components that you get with O365, depending on the plan, by the way, that you subscribe for. There's also Skype for Business online. So Skype for Business is a chatting application, an instant messaging application, plus it allows us to do meetings, like this webinar is set up using Skype for Business, as you can see. So we can do some chatting. You're listening to me talk right now via the Skype for Business platform. So that's what Skype for Business is. And you also have Office 365 Pro Plus. So Office 365 Pro Plus is no different from your regular Office. So the difference here is that the Office 365 Pro Plus is is subscription based, as opposed to the license that you need to get for your regular Office, where you install it on the device and that's it. So you don't need to, you only need to activate it on your device to continue to use that software. But in the case of Office Pro Plus, one license will allow you to use it on 5 different devices. That's if you have a license of O365 Pro Plus. The user with that license, the user that has been assigned that license, can have O365 Pro Plus installed on 5 different devices, right? And in terms of its usage, you still get to use it the same way. So if you would like, you can have it streamed down, you can have it installed on your computer, but there's a particular service that checks to ensure that your license is valid, that you're paying your subscription fee. It checks every once in a month, right? And if it's not, if it detects that perhaps you haven't made your payment, for instance, then it's going to go into RFM mode, reduce functionality mode, where you cannot use it to edit your document anymore, but you can still use it to view documents, you can use it to print, all those sort of things. And you also have Azure Active Directory. So Azure Active Directory is similar to your Active Directory, your domain controller that you have on-prem, right? So all of those services that I've mentioned earlier on, your SharePoint, your Skype for Business, your Exchange Online, they all sit on top of the Windows Azure Active Directory, right? So now those are the common components of O365. There are some optional components that are out there on the O365 platform, but those are the very important ones. And now some of you might be wondering, why O365? Well, O365 gives you a number of advantages, but one of the very pronounced advantage that you tend to get with O365 is the fact that you can use it from anywhere, provided you have internet access, right? So you're not limited to being at the office to do your work, right? So you're not restricted to looking around for your laptop or your desktop system to start working on your document. So once you have your mobile device with internet access, in fact any device of your choice, provided you have internet on it, you are good to you're good to go. So that is the benefit that O365 gives you, the ability to be able to work from anywhere provided you have internet access. Now, having said that, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the course now. Types of user accounts. There are different types of user accounts. For you to consume the services of O365, or for your users to use the service of O365 after you've become a tenant of O365, you need to start first of all by creating user accounts, right? So just like you cannot use the computer without a user account, likewise you can use services of O365 without creating account up in O365. So now those accounts, there are different ways of creating those accounts, of setting up those accounts. You have cloud identities, and by the way, when you hear the term identities, it's another word for identities is users, right? So cloud identities means these users of O365 reside up only on the O365 platform, right? So your administrator, your O365 administrator, get to log into O365 admin center and create those users for you in O365, and then your users can log in with those created users, right? So now this is suitable for a small organization. In the case where you have a larger number of user base, then it will be better for you to have an ADDS, a domain controller, on-prem, right? Subscribe to the service of O365, and you look at how you can synchronize between your Windows Azure, the Active Directory that is running in the cloud, and your domain controller that you have on-prem, right? So there is a component, there's a tool that you need to download, Azure AD Connect. So you download it on your domain controller, or better still, if you're following best practice, you install it on a separate machine that is domain joined, have it configured, and that way it moves the user account that is already been created on your on-prem domain controller, it moves them up to Office 365 Windows Azure, right? So you don't have a case where users in O365 are being pulled down to Active Directory on-prem. No, it is one-way sync. So the synchronization is from your AD on-prem to O365, right? And the passwords, to in case of a password change, the password are sent on a time-to-time basis, but keep in mind that it is an hash equivalent of those passwords that get transferred up to O365. Then there's the case of federated identities. In the case of federated identities, this is useful when you have multiple line of business application that require you to authenticate many times. I mean, imagine having SharePoint, Exchange, Skype for Business, and you need to sign into each of this application, and each of the application keep requesting you for user accounts, all of the time. That can be very frustrating, for your users. So one way of mitigating that challenge is to set up ADFS, Active Directory Federation Service, right? Such that when your user logs in, it goes through the ADFS server. The ADFS server, is now in charge of authenticating your users. And if your users need to authenticate to the other line of business application, ADFS simply handles the authentication process for them on their behalf. It logs them in on the user's behalf, so you don't have to type in their username and password multiple times, right? So that is federation identities for you. Next, let's look at user provisioning options. How do we create these users? What tools are available to us to create Office 365 users with? We have the Office 365 Admin Center, so I'm going to be showing you what the Admin Center looks like in just a little bit. And you can do that. You log into the O365 portal, get to the users section, and you can keep creating as many users as you want. Alternatively, you can do an import, a bulk import, in the case where you have multiple users to create. So you can look at having a spreadsheet of those users, and you import those users into O365. So that comes in very handy when you have a lot of users to create, as opposed to creating them one by one. So that option is there for you to leverage on. And you also have Windows PowerShell. PowerShell also allows you to create users. Yes, you can create users one by one within the PowerShell environment, but PowerShell truly shines when it comes to automating manual processes, when it comes to repetitive tasks, right? So you can also do a bulk creation of user accounts from the PowerShell window as well. And there is the last option, which is directory synchronization. So directory synchronization is a scenario where you have Active Directory on-prem, and you've installed the AD Connect tool to move those users that you have on your Active Directory into the cloud. Alright, so next let's talk about managing user accounts licenses in O365. While assigning O365 service licenses to your users, you can choose to replace existing licenses, or you can choose to add licenses to your users. Licensing your users for O365 services simply means that those your users are going to be able to use those services of O365 that you've licensed them for. We've mentioned those services that you have running in O365. So if you have a user with SharePoint online license, then the user would be able to use SharePoint. But at the same time, when you revoke the license from the user, you're simply freeing up the license, for other users to consume, right? And also, when you log into the admin center or via PowerShell, so you can also view the available licenses that you've purchased, that you have, and you can get a view how many of the users are licensed and how many users are not licensed. How many users are licensed and how many licenses do you have left to assign to your other users. Managing user accounts. I've mentioned it that you can manage your user accounts using the O365 admin center or using PowerShell. So when you have a user account, you can modify this number of settings about a user account, the user account name, their email, aliases, what product license you need to assign to them, which groups, if you already have groups created, are they going to be members of, sign-in status, office installation, their role, do you want them to be administrators, so on and so forth. So not to worry, so we get to see some of the settings options once we hit the demo, right? So deleting and recovering user accounts in O365. Now it's possible to delete an O365 user, right? So when you create a user in O365 and you no longer want the user, you can delete the user. However, deleted users are not permanently deleted in O365, so it still stays in the recycle bin of O365 for a period of 30 days. So if you need to recover the users, it is as easy as going to the deleted users and restoring the users from there. But deleted users, when you delete a user, it frees up the license that is associated to that user, meaning that license can now be assigned to some other users. And when the user is being restored, the user mailbox does not get restored with the user. So just keep that in mind, right? And if the user is being deleted for more than 30 days, then you need to contact Microsoft to be able to recover such a user back. So bear in mind that you have a 30 days grace period to be able to bring back your user from the O365 admin center, and also by using your Windows PowerShell commandlet. Next, let's talk password policy options. One of the most important actions when securing O365 is to configure secure password policy, right? So I have a very good secure password policies in place. So O365 help us to provide secure access by requiring users to sign in with a password, right? So if you need to sign into O365, you are required to sign in with a password. So password policy talks about things such as the number of days before your password expiration. Password expiration by default up in O365 is set to 2 years. That's about 730 days ish, if I'm not mistaken. And you have the password notification being set to 14 days by default, right? So you can adjust all of those settings to suit your own need. So you can specify the number of days for the password expiration warning. So if you like to bring it down from 14 to 5 days, of course, you can set it to your heart content. And you can as well choose to disable password expiration. Maybe you have certain users that don't want their password to expire. That's not a good one, but it's possible to have a scenario such as that, where you have one of your bosses that does not want his or her password to expire. Well, the option is there up in O365, right? But that option is one of the PowerShell only option. So that's something you need to keep in mind, that some of the options up in O365, you can only get to do them from PowerShell. They are PowerShell only tasks, right? So it means that 100% of the tasks can be taken care of using Windows PowerShell, whereas you cannot do everything that needs to be done on the O365 environment from the O365 admin center, right? So resetting a user password, when you create a user, a temporary password gets created for the user. That if you choose not to specify a password for the user, right? So it will be your responsibility now to email the credentials to the user, and the user is going to be prompted to change their password when next they log into O365. And the user can decide on their own to also reset their password. So there is the concept of self-service being built into the O365 environment that allows users to change their password themselves without the need of contacting the administrator to do that for them, right? And about resetting the admin password, you can ask another administrator to reset it for you, or you can choose to do it yourself, right? So but if one administrator is forgotten his password, then that administrator user can ask another administrator to reset his or her password for him or her, right? So it means that best practice means that you need to have minimum of 2 global administrator on your tenant account, right? Self-service password management. So that's what I just mentioned, the fact that O365 allows users to change password themselves if they want to, so they don't necessarily need to contact the administrator to get that done. And the method can be via email, it can be via your mobile phone, and or via a security question, right? So this is pretty much straightforward. So how about multi-factor authentication? Multi-factor authentication, what does it mean? Now, multi-factor authentication in O365 help us to increase the security of O365 environment by requesting users to provide a username and password when they sign in. And then there is also the use of a second authentication method, right? So it means that the username and password is not sufficient. They also need to authenticate. There's a second level layer of authentication where they will need to acknowledge say a text message that is being sent to their mobile phone, or simply need to answer a call, and once they do that, then O365 once they're able to do that successfully, then they can be signed in to O365 and then start to consume the services of O365. So this concept is known as multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication by default is not turned on, so your tenant administrator will need to enable multi-factor authentication. So in the demo, I'll show you where this multi-factor authentication can be enabled. Now because of time, we're running short of time now, So some of these other slides, so I think I can explain them in the demo, right? So we have planning password policies here. Password policies and authentication simply is telling us about best practices that we need to conform to when it comes to passwords, like choosing correctly defining your administrator's role, document and standardize password policies, enforce the usage of strong passwords, so on and so forth, right? And the next is groups. So there are different types of groups that you can create up in O365. There's the Office 365 groups itself. There are group types of O365, such as distribution group, mail enabled distribution group, mail enable security group, and security group. There are other group types too, group types that you have associated with Exchange. There are other groups that you have associated with SharePoint Online, right? So let's get into the demo now, and I can show you some of those things. Right, so to log into O365, the URL, you open your web browser and you type portal.office.com, and you will need to put in your credentials, right? So you need to, first of all, you must have set up your tenant account. So I have an account already set up for myself for the purpose of this demo. So I'm going to be typing in my password now, my highly sophisticated password. Right, and it's logged me into the landing page of O365. Now, because I'm the global administrator for my tenants, I get to see this admin button show up here, right? So if I need to administer things up in O365, so I'll need to click on the admin button, and the admin simply takes us to the O365 admin center. O365 admin center. So as you can see here, we can create users. Okay, so you can create users, you can create groups. So whatever is it you want to do, you can get to do them from here. Let's create at least one sample user, shall we? To create a user, you click on the users link and come to first active users to see how many users we've created. Okay, we have this number of users already been created. So if I need to create additional users, I'll click on add a user, put in the username. Let's create a user for John Bull, J Bull, and creating the user. From this screen itself, you can choose to assign a password to this user, or you let O365 generate a password for you. The default is auto generate. Password is being auto generated. If I expand this, you'll see that the password is going to be auto generated. But if I want to type in the password, well, you have that option as well. So you can type in a password here. So let's allow it auto generate the password, and at the same time I can decide to assign roles to this user. Do I want the user to be an help desk administrator? Do I want this user to be just a regular user? Do I want the user to be an administrator user, so on and so forth? And you can also license this user for O365 services. By default now, when you create a user using the admin center, the user automatically is being licensed. As you can see, O365 license is turned on for this user. But if I need licenses to be turned off, so I'll simply hit the off button to turn off the license. And maybe I only want certain services to be licensed for this user. Services like Microsoft Team. Okay, I want that on. I need Microsoft Forms to be turned on for this user, so I can manipulate the settings very easily from here. And then I'll click on add, and as you can see here, it has auto-generated a password for John Bull, and this information is going to be sent to me as a global administrator. Then I can forward it to John Bull to log in with these credentials, and when John Bull is logging in, he's going to be prompted now to change his password to something else. So I'm going to close this. Good. So this is how we create an account. So you can also modify the account by selecting the account, selecting an account. So if you like, you can change the password of the account, you can edit the name, product license, edit the license, edit the group membership. The sign-in status right now is allowed to sign in. So if I want to deny this user access to signing in, so I can do that from here as well. And if you need to delete a user, deleting a user is as easy about let's delete this user that we just created now. So you select the user and you hit delete, right, to get rid of the user. And it's possible to delete multiple users at once from the admin center as well. If I need multiple users to be deleted, I would select the multiple users that I want to delete, and you can see this pop up. So I can choose my options from here, or I can come to more options and choose the option of my choice here as well. I want us to delete just one of the user now. John Bull, hit delete. And yes, let's delete the user. It's asking if we're sure. So yes, we're sure we want to delete the user. Good and good. So the user now has been deleted. So in the slide we made mention of the recycle bin, that when you delete a user in O365, the user doesn't get permanently deleted, and that's true. So if you come to your deleted users link, so you can see list of users that has been deleted. I've just deleted John Bull. So if I need John Bull to be restored, it is as easy as the click of a mouse. Select the user or how many users you want restored and hit restore, right? And that's how we restore a user. And bear in mind that the users are going to show up here provided it is not longer than, they've not been deleted for longer than 30 days, right? So that's how we delete a user. And I also mentioned multi-factor authentication, that multi-factor authentication isn't turned on by default. So if you need it to be turned on, you need to come on the settings, come to service and add-ins, and from here we'll click on Azure multi-factor authentication. Click on manage multi-factor authentication, and it's going to open up another window, a new window, right? So from here I can select the user that I want to enable for multi-factor authentication. You can see that by default multi-factor authentication is disabled, I beg your pardon, for all of the users. So if I need John Bull to be enabled for multi-factor authentication, select John Bull and hit enable. Okay, enable multi-factor authentication. And enabling multi-factor authentication, it is as simple as doing just that. So when I select John Bull now, you can see it's been enabled. So now I can disable multi-factor authentication again for John Bull if I want. Now when John Bull logs in, John Bull can then choose the option, the method that he wants to use for his multi-factor authentication, right? Another thing we talked about in the slide was security settings. That's policy, password policy. So to adjust password policy from the admin center, you click, still under settings there is security and privacy. So you click on that and you can see the days before password expires is set to 2 years, 730 days. So if you are not set, of course we should change this, and you probably want to change it to lesser than 45 days, right? So if you need to change it, you click on edit and change it to your hard content. So all of the settings as well, you can get to do them from the shell, from the Windows Azure shell. There are prerequisites though to setting up your Windows to use PowerShell, to manage O365. You can use the default PowerShell that you have on Windows, provided provided you've installed all the necessary prerequisites and you do an import, for AD Azure PowerShell. But if not, you can download AD Azure module for Windows PowerShell. Download that from Microsoft website, have it installed on your machine. There are prerequisites also, for you to have it installed on your machine. You need to make sure that the Windows operating system that you're using is Windows 7 or later. If you're using a client operating system, it can either be Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, your server operating system, Windows Server 2008 R2 or Windows Server 2012 or 2012 R2 or 2016. You need to install the .NET Framework 3.5.1 feature. If you don't have that, then you simply download and have it installed. And you also need to download the Microsoft Online Service Sign-in Assistant, for your operating system of choice, for the operating system that you want to manage O365 with. And you can then download Azure and start to make use of it. So I already have all those prerequisites on my machine now, so I'm going to launch Windows Azure. So Windows Azure Active Directory module for Windows PowerShell. Right, so it brings us here. So you can see this PS in front of it denotes that you are in a PowerShell environment, not DOS environment, not command prompt environment, but PowerShell environment. So the first thing we need to do here is to connect to the Azure service, right? And you connect to the Azure service by typing connect MSOL service, and you press enter. So you type in your credential, that's your administrator, your global administrator's credential. Kazim can teach 2.onmicrosoft.com and my highly sophisticated password. And we're waiting for it to log me in. And yes, we're in. So you can get help about a commandlet. So I can do get command first to see all the available PowerShell commandlets that we can use. So there are a lot of them. So I'm going to just quickly cancel out of here. Let's do get help about the commandlet. Let's say connect MSOL service. So if you want to get some additional information about the usage of a commandlet or examples of how to use a commandlet, so you can leverage on your get help commandlet, right? Get help on connect dash MSOL service. Press enter. So you can see it gives you synopsis of what the command is about, the syntax of how the command command is used. Now if this is not satisfactory for you, you want to see an example of how this command can be used, so you can do the same thing and end it with the full option or example switch. And you can see here, this is some examples for you, example number 1 and example number 2. Good. So let's create a new user. How do we create a new user? To create a new user, you do new MSOL user, and with the switch of user principal name, my user principal name is going to be called, let me quote that, Scott. Let's create an account for Scott Tiger, S Tiger at .com, and the display name is another switch. The display name is Scott Tiger, right? And first name switch, first name is Scott, and the last name switch, last name is Tiger, and you press enter. Right, so this user has been created, and you can see the user password here, but this user right now is not licensed for any of the O365 services, right? Now I can also choose to assign licenses to this user from here, but to see my license pack, that I have with this my tenant account, my subscription, I can use a command called get MSOL account school, and yes, this is my account school ID. Enterprise pack is what I have, and I have 25 users, and I've consumed 4 of the licenses. So how can I assign license to this my newly created user? To assign a license to the user, I'm going to do set MSOL, set MSOL user license. Yes, user principal name will be for John Bull, so I'm just going to copy what I have here. Right, and I can add the license, and the license name, I can copy this as well to prevent typo. Oh, and we get an error. All right, the reason I believe why we're getting this error is because location, usage location has not been assigned to the user, right? So let's do that real quick. Let's fix the error. So we do a set MSOL user principal name, and usage location, the default is US. Good. So let's try the command again, and this time we're fine. So if you check your get MSOL account school again, you'll notice now we've consumed 5 of our 25 licenses. Good. So we can as well view the users and their assigned licenses as well. To do that, you type in a get msol user. You can view all the users. Let's do a pipe symbol, formatted list, display name of those users, comma, and let's view their licenses, if I can spell correctly. Good. So I can see Sekinatu has this license, but as a matter of fact, so we have 1 2 3 4 5 users, and all the 5 users have licenses assigned to them. How do we drop a user? So we can drop a user. I showed you how to drop a user from the admin center. To drop a user from PowerShell, you do remove msol user, and you remove the user by their user principal name. I think I have one on clipboard already. Okay, so Scott Tiger is the user that we want to drop. If you like, you can append the force switch at the end. So the force switch simply does not prompt you, for confirmation. So we'll do this. And yes, there's no error message being returned to us, so that shows that the command was successfully accepted. So let's confirm how many more users we have. Get msol, sorry, the last command, yes. Okay, I'll get msol user. All right, so you can see now that Scott Tiger has now been deleted, but we know that Scott Tiger as a deleted user is going to be sitting in the deleted container, in O365, which means that the user can as well be restored, right? So we can restore the user also from here. Restore msol user. The user principal name is Scott Tiger. Okay, and let's confirm, and good. Scott Tiger is now been restored back. All right. So we also mentioned groups. We can create groups from here. You can as well create it up in the O365 admin center. To create a group from here, you do new msol group, and what is the display name of the group? Let's create a group for IT, and if you like, you can give it a description, and I can call it the IT team, and we're good. So IT team is being created. To delete a group, it's as easy as doing remove msol group. Msol group will also remove the group and then the group name, right? And to also do this from the admin center, I'm not sure I showed this to you from the admin center. You come under groups, click on groups, and you had a group. So you can see that group that we created from the PowerShell environment is now showing up there. So you select the group type that you want to create. There are different types of group that you can create, but maybe some other time we can try to talk more about this. So because of time, so this is how to create a group, and you can choose to add members to the group, right? Next thing that I want to show you from PowerShell is password policy. So how you can configure password policy using PowerShell. So let's get back to our PowerShell environment, and I want to let's create a new password for our user, for our Scott Tiger user. So to create a new password for Scott Tiger, I'm going to do set msol user password for user principal name Scott Tiger, and they switch new password, and I can type in the new password here. I'll use a password of the very popular password, and now Scott Tiger password has been changed to something else. How about setting a password policy for a tenant, for the entire tenant, where password users will be required to change their password every 40 days, and we can bring the notification days to let's say 5 days or maybe 10 days. So to do that, you do set msol password policy, msol password policy, domain name. My domain name is kazimcantich.onmicrosoft.com, and I'll start with validity period is 40 days, and notification is going to be set to, let's put it at 10 days, and I'll press enter, and we get an error. I like to think is because my domain wasn't quoted, so let's fix that. Oh, we get another error again. What could be wrong here? Domain name error code domain name. Okay, my domain name is wrong. Is kazimcantich2. Yes, so all along I've been using a wrong domain name. So that is how you configure your password policy. And I also mentioned the fact that it's possible to configure password never to expire for a user, for a particular user. Now I mentioned that task is PowerShell only task, so it's not something you can do from the O365 admin center. So if I need to do this for Scott Tiger, let's say to do it for Scott Tiger, I'm going to set msol user principal name Scott Tiger, and I'll put Scott Tiger password never expires to true, $true. Alright, so now Scott Tiger's password will never expire, right? Now, how about also removing the strong password requirement, from a user? We also don't want Scott Tiger to have that complexity requirement where when he's typing in his password, he has to choose alphanumerical values plus special characters. If he likes to use 1 2 3 ABC, for his password, so even though we know that's not in conformity to best practice, in terms of security, but if you have a need to do that, it's also possible, to do that, and that also is another PowerShell only task, right? So to do that in PowerShell, you set, again, similar to what we've done, what we did earlier. So I'm just going to call back the last commandlet, and the switch here is strong password, strong password required to false, right? To false. So moving forward, Scott Tiger will not be prompted for a strong password, so he can use any password that he liked, as his password. Good and good. So because of time, so I can have some time to respond to some of the questions you probably have raised in the chat area. So we can call it a webinar here. So let's take some of the questions now. One question: is the option for user assisted password change available on O365 subscription? Yes. You have multiple ways by which a user can change their password up in O365. The user can change the password themselves. So once they log into the O365 portal, so they can choose to request for a password change, where they get to change it themselves, or they can contact the administrator to help them change the password. So that option, of course, yes, is there in O365. Question 2: how do I create authentication on O365? Authentication in O365, I'm not sure what exactly you mean here. If you mean how do we set up multi-factor authentication in O365, yes, I just walked you through it earlier on in one of the demos. Again, to set it up, you come to that for multi-factor authentication now, settings, services and add-ins. You click on Azure multi-factor authentication and you can manage your multi-factor authentication from here. So once I click, it opens another window where we can select a given user for multi-factor authentication. So if that's what you mean, that's how you configure it. And if you're talking about general password settings, you can do that under still settings, security and privacy, and you can hit the edit button to adjust the settings here. So this is about the much you can do from the Exchange Admin Center. So those other tasks such as making the user not use strong passwords, disabling a complexity requirement for a user, those are PowerShell only tasks, and I've also showed it to you in the earlier demo. Good. Another question is, how is user assisted password handled in a hybrid environment? When you have an hybrid environment, you don't manage user account settings up in O365 anymore. So your source of authority now becomes your on-prem AD. So you manage it locally, and then the account change gets synced up into the cloud, right? So anytime you have an hybrid environment, you don't create users or manage passwords for users anymore in O365. So you do it locally on your local AD. So your local AD now is responsible for your authentication. So at any time any user account change settings happen, the AD connector will be responsible for transferring those changes to O365. And also, if there's a password change locally, the hash equivalent of those passwords are also going to be pushed up into O365. Another question from Abraham is, can O365 be administered from a workstation, or is it on a server? Administration of O365, you don't necessarily need to have a server or a workstation to administer O365. If you need to administer O365 using the admin center, so admin center, you can log into it via any browser of your choice. So it means that if you have a mobile phone with a web browser, so you can administer O365 admin center from your mobile phone. However, if you need to administer O365 via PowerShell, then I'm afraid you need to use a computer for that. But it doesn't have to be a server. It might as well just be your regular desktop system, or one of your laptop that you use to do your day-to-day job. So you simply need to have those prerequisites installed, the sign-on assistant, the .NET framework, and you install PowerShell module for Active Directory, and you're good to go, right? Next question is still from Abraham. Must O365 run on the server? No, Abraham is not quite getting the concept of O365. O365 is a cloud-based service, so which means that it's not something that you installed locally on your servers, right? Gone are the days where people must have those services, those applications installed on their servers for you to use it over the network. The way cloud services works is that a cloud provider such as Microsoft, they've set up the infrastructure. They have data centers, we're talking about huge data centers here, data center the size of a football field or even larger, right? So where you have multiple servers, and those servers are very well secured, and they've installed those different line of business applications for people to connect to, for people to consume, right? So you simply pay Microsoft if you want to have an email, an exchange class of an email service. So you simply pay Microsoft a certain fee, and you can have your email created up there in the cloud. So when I say the cloud, I mean Microsoft data center, right? So and all you need now is to connect to it. All you need on your own part is to have internet on your own device to be able to consume the service. Now there are a number of advantages that gives you if you're looking to have the solution installed on-prem. You need to worry about issues of power. You need to worry about how to cool your servers, because servers also need to be cooled. So you need to pay have a budgeted amount for cooling your servers. You need to invest on techie people, get people who can administer those servers, you understand. But what you notice with O365 is that it saves you a lot of those headaches, right? So it still doesn't mean that you don't need people to administer O365. Yes, you do, but you don't have to worry about the server going down. You don't have to worry about RAM not working, the power pack on your at the back of your server going bad, all those sort of things. So you only focus on what matters to you, which is your business, right? So O365 is not installed on your server. It is there in the cloud in Microsoft data center. You pay to consume those services, right? So you just use the service on the go, provided you have an active subscription. Good. Do we have any more questions? Okay, another question is from Sikiru Adebayo. So he wants to know, how can one back up a user mailbox before deactivating O365? Well, there are different ways of backing up. There's a workaround this. If you're using Outlook, you can choose to back up the OST files, or it's better, to make things easy. It's better you leverage on some third-party tools, that allows you to back up your mailboxes, right? So some of those tools are very, they are very granular tools. They allows you to do a number of things, right? So leverage on those third-party tools. If you don't know how to do that, so you can work with your administrators. There are a number of those third-party tools up in the Azure marketplace that you can use, some from Microsoft, some from other vendors. I think I have an example here. This is one, code 2 backup for O365. So you can see, so in your free time, so you can try to look more into this, or go up to the Azure marketplace and find a backup tool up there that can help you back up your Office 365 mailboxes. So what else do we have? Another question from Abraham: is O365 admin part of O365 subscription, or is it subscribed for separately? Yes, O365 admin center is part of your subscription, so it's not something you pay for separately. So once you have an active tenant, it comes with it, right? So once you have an active tenant, your O365 admin global administrator logs into O365 and you're able to see it, right? So just like I logged in earlier on, this is the landing page. So once your global administrator logs into O365, he sees this, and when your user also logs in, it depends on the subscription, it depends on the license that they have. Some of these might be security trimmed away from them if they don't have the license assigned, right? So this user now has all of these licenses assigned, so you can use all of these different components of O365, different services of O365, plus the admin center. So because I'm logged in as a global administrator, so if I click, it brings me here to the admin center where I can configure O365. So the admin center is the control panel, so to speak, of your O365 tenants. So if there are no more questions, or because of time, I think we're running we're behind, we've overrun our time right now, so I think we can call it a day here. Thank you very much. I would like to thank you for your time, and I hope that this has been informative for you. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.